We are April and Scott, creators of NaughtyGym.com, and this is The Naughty Gym Show.
For years, we've been fitness and nutrition coaches to thousands of people through our commercial gyms and online platform. We've also spent nearly a decade in an ever-evolving open relationship.
This show brings together two of our biggest passions, fitness and sex positivity. Our mission is to maximize the physical and mental health of anyone brave enough to explore relationship structures that run counter to societal norms.
We have demolished our old ways of thinking about relationships, and from that rubble, built a life full of happiness, adventure, and vitality. And now we want to help you do the same.
So hop on the treadmill, start the show, and let us teach you how to never stop playing.
I'm Scott, and you're about to hear my opening keynote from Be Better at Being Bad 2026 at Hedonism II Resort, titled The Freedom Mandate, the ethical case for relational freedom. This is the second of two special episodes we're releasing back-to-back this week. The first was April's keynote, and this one is mine. Next Tuesday, we'll release our full recap of that event. If your partner's happiness matters to you, here's the uncomfortable question. Do you owe them freedom? In the Freedom Mandate, I share Wild Love Theory's 7-word thesis and the cathedral metaphor behind it, and I ask what we're really doing when we turn fear into rules. If that idea inspires you and terrifies you, you're exactly where this talk begins. If this brings up questions or reflections, I'd genuinely love to hear from you. You can email me anytime at naughtygymonline@gmail.com. Thanks for being here, and I hope you enjoy the talk. All right, so April and I, for a year now, have been working on a book called Wild Love Theory. I actually presented the first iteration of this. That's my keynote last year. And my focus in giving that speech was, I just hope I don't look stupid and people think this is the dumbest thing they've ever heard. But what happened was, unexpectedly, people started saying, hey, we need, this sounded good. We need more information. Could you do a worksheet or a workbook or something? And we started looking into it and realized we could do a book about this. We've been working on it for a year. Originally, I was writing it, but it was very theoretical, philosophical, maybe a bit boring. And so we came up with a way of changing it to where at the end of each chapter, April writes her embodied experience of moving through the ideas in Wild Love Theory. And it totally changed the tone of the book. Now you get this new novel framework followed by what it feels like to try to engage it and move through it in your life. So we more or less we've got 90% of it done. And we're hoping to release it this year. It's going to be self-published. But today what I'm going to talk about will have some overlap to what I talked about last year, but there's been a lot more robust ethical safeguards, therapeutic safeguards, and things built into the book as we've done more and more research about these concepts. So I'm going to present it in a little bit different way today. Luckily, Catherine and her group of therapists have all said they would love to help with retreats and helping people dive really deep into these concepts, because today I'm going to be giving you essentially a Cliff Notes version of the book. It's probably going to end up being about a 60,000 word book, and we can't cover all of the concepts in a 30-minute keynote. But if you have questions, nothing will light my soul on fire more than for you to stop me at some point after the keynote, in the nude pool, somewhere today, and say, hey, based on what you said, I have a question. It will make me feel like I'm doing something worthwhile. Or ask April how she has felt as she's experienced these concepts, and she'll be glad to tell you. Right after the keynote, all right, the workshop that myself, April, and Catherine will be doing will be an effort to kind of help you start this process. If to you, this feels like something that's worthwhile. All right, so I encourage you to stay around. It's not hard, you're not going to be embarrassed, but I promise you it will be enlightening. And I may go so far as to say it may change your relationship life going forward. So stay around for that. Well, so what is Wild Love Theory? At its heart, this is not the theory itself, but this is the point. Wild Love Theory is the first relational framework to place an ethical obligation on the pursuit of relational freedom itself, rather than on a particular relationship structure. We're chasing, it's an ethical mandate, we call it the freedom mandate, to at least orient yourself in the direction of relationship freedom. We're going to go through, we're going to unpack that more what it means, but first I want to tell you a little bit of a story. So this isn't the only event we do. We have events this year here. We have an event in Barcelona, Spain. We have an event in El Salvador, and somewhere between 4, 5, or 6 retreats inside the United States. Okay, but in August we're going to Barcelona, and one of the things we're most excited about is visiting a place called, and I cannot speak Spanish, so if any of you speak Spanish, you're welcome to correct the pronunciation here, but it's called Sagrada Familia. Anybody speak Spanish well? Can you correct that? Okay. Yeah. Good enough? Okay.
That was understandable.
It is the single most visited monument, tourist attraction in the entire country of Spain. I paused right there before I said country. Is that a country?
You got this guy.
Listen, the construction started in 1882, and it is still going on. No human eyes have ever seen that cathedral unobstructed by scaffolding, cranes, and workmanship. It's not finished. The cool thing was that it was supposed to be finally finished after over 140 years in August of 2026, right when we were taking a group of 30 lifestyle people to Spain. We were going to get to stand in front of it and see it unobstructed. So it doesn't look right now as beautiful as it could because it's covered in scaffolding. But that scaffolding is necessary for building it. You can't build something like that. You can't build a cathedral without first putting up the scaffolding to support the work. The guy that built it, his name was, again, I have no idea. Antoni Gaudi.
Oh, it's a Gaudi.
I love this when people are laughing like that. He knew when he started building it that he could never see it finished. He built it with the faith that other people would come along behind him and continue the work and complete his masterpiece. But it's built on this incredibly strong foundation, and they have been building different spires and towers and parts of it all of these years. It's now, the completed project now looks like it's going to be around 2030 before anybody ever gets to see it unfinished. But the fact that over 140 years it's been such a huge tourist attraction is evidence of the fact that you don't need to have something completed for it to be beautiful. It's one of the most, we've never been, but the people that we talked to that has says you cannot describe the feelings of walking in those doors. It is one of the most beautiful, seemingly alive buildings that you'll ever walk into. It's beautiful, but it's not finished. The scaffolding that's around it is not a problem. It's the work that has to take place to complete a masterpiece. That is why you have these cathedral handouts today. In the book, we use this, we call it a metaphor of a cathedral to help make the concepts in the book sticky so that it's easy to remember and make sense of it. But it's built on this incredible foundation. The scaffolding is necessary and temporary for a time, but it is meant to be temporary. Much like our relationships, start with a foundation, they have scaffolding, and there's a process for building. So we're going to talk about each of those things as a way of explaining what wildlife theory is. But first I want to give you the theory. The theory itself is 7 words, and it's changed from last year, but it's still 7 words like it was last year, but it's just a little more, there we go. Hello? Here's wildlife theory. Maximal relational happiness requires maximal relational freedom. Maximal relational happiness requires maximum relational freedom. That does not mean happiness requires freedom. It just means maximal happiness requires maximal freedom, right? April and I have been in a 10-year relationship, and we've been open from day one. In the first, let's call it 5 years, we had a list of rules, and if we unrolled it, it would stretch back to Ray and Angela in the back row. In fact, I don't think the only thing that I was ever comfortable with was that I'd love to see my wife make out with another woman, but the idea of a man even flirting with her terrified me, filled me with dread. It was awful. So we had all these rules, right? So we were maybe moving towards some freedom, but we certainly weren't maximally free. But that's the philosophy of the book. Maximal relational happiness requires maximal relational freedom. And the entire book is spent unpacking the meaning of those 7 words. And every word in that theory means something very important. We're going to talk about 2 of those words, happiness and freedom. By happiness, we do not just mean I'm happy in the moment and not worried about repercussions. That is a type of happiness that's important. It's called hedonistic happiness. Perfect for where we're at, right? It's the joy you feel when you have sex with your partner. It's the joy you feel of going to a movie. It's the joy you feel of your football team not being like a bunch of assholes like mine did last Friday night. That's happiness, and it's important. But probably a little more important is the other type of happiness. Plato came up with this word. I'll probably butcher the pronunciation, but it's eudaimonic happiness. It is more of that pursuit of what really matters to you, your internal values, the long-term outlook and things that you want in your life. Because sometimes those things conflict. Sometimes a short-term happiness can derail your long-term happiness. And in Wild Love Theory, we go into a lot of discussion about what we mean by all of that, but it's essentially the combination of both of those things. Doing your best to maximize both hedonistic and eudaimonic happiness. That's important, right? When anybody in here say happiness, your partner's happiness is not important to you. We all want that for our partner. So why freedom? Well, freedom isn't part of the purpose of the relationship. When freedom isn't part of the purpose or goal of your relationship, happiness begins to dwindle. If you can't allow your partner to pursue what they truly want, what their deepest values are, what their hedonistic values are, they're not going to be as happy as they could be. And typically what we do with our rules in the lifestyle, what April and I have done forever, is every time I feel a little uncomfortable, I feel jealous, I feel anxiety, I feel hurt, pain, all of that sort of stuff. The thing we do to try to solve that is to put a rule in place. You can't kiss other men. If I see her kissing a man and that starts to bother me, simple solution. Tell her she can't do that. But at the same time, what I'm doing to manage my fears and insecurity is I'm shrinking her. Instead of me doing the work to get over something that's not inherently bad. I'm not saying that if you have a no kissing rule, and some of you may have that that's inherently bad. But if she wants to do that, then instead of me doing the work to fix my own fear and insecurity, I'm farming that work out to her instead. I don't want to do the work, I'd rather you do it. I don't want to fix the insecurity that I have, I'd rather you just not do the thing that causes the fear or insecurity, even though that's something she may want to do. So freedom is critically important for us to even have the ability to pursue the life that we want. So happiness is important, freedom is important. The handout that you have is basically the structure in picture form of Wild Love Theory. So look at the bottom of your handout. You'll see at the bottom of that cathedral is foundational stuff. Things like kindness, honesty, community, empathy, those sorts of things. Those things are, the reason they're in the foundation here is because based on all of the research that we've looked at, Those are necessary for any successful and healthy relationship. It doesn't matter whether you're monogamous, it doesn't matter whether you're non-monogamous, polyamorous, single, but these relationships, even if you're single, spill over into your relationships with your family, your co-workers. They're necessary for any really strong, healthy relationship. Wild love theory does not discuss these at all. It's assumed. There's better books out there, more qualified people. If you need work on your communication, you go see Catherine. You're not going to see me in April because we're not therapists. The book assumes these foundational attributes, and that's why sometimes we kind of have talked about wild love theory being sort of a black belt relationship issue, because we're not working on the basics. We're trying to go beyond them. So the foundation is all of these things, and we don't touch on those in the book, only to highlight that they are foundational. Here's where the next tricky part comes in. To continue to erect a strong cathedral on top of that foundation, you have to have scaffolding. Wild love theory is not against rules or limits or boundaries. What wild love theory is against is imposed boundaries, which is technically not even a correct phrase. Boundaries are supposed to be an inward-facing thing. Here's what I'm going to do to protect myself. A boundary, in therapy speak, correct me if I'm wrong, is not you can't kiss somebody. A better boundary would be, if you're going to kiss somebody else, I'm going to have to walk away and get some fresh air, or I'm going to have to go do this or that to regulate myself. That's a true boundary. So when I say we don't do imposed boundaries in wild love theory, it's really a misuse of the word, but it's also something that makes it easier to understand. By an imposed boundary, I mean you can't kiss somebody. I'm taking something that she would want to do. Let me back up. Any boundary that you choose because both of you genuinely want it. Not one of you wants to be non-monogamous and the other doesn't really want to, but they're just going to say yes to make their partner happy. That's not what we're talking. That is not a chosen value here. That is essentially one person giving it away and the other one being coerced into it. Right? That's an imposed boundary, is when we say, you have to do this, even though it's not something I know you want to do. Right? An imposed boundary is something that you no longer can do or being asked to do that you wouldn't otherwise choose for yourself. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about, that's what we mean by freedom in wild love theory, is the absence of imposed boundaries. Doesn't mean the absence of rules. You know, all the rules, you can be monogamous and be practicing wild love theory. If both of you truly want monogamy, and that's the only thing you want, and you can't imagine being happy or having any desire for non-monogamy, beautiful. Wild love theory is relationship structure neutral. Anybody in any relationship can practice wild love theory. So the types of things, though, for the scaffolding, types of things that a lot of you have, a lot of that April and I have had, things like no separate messaging. I'm not saying that's bad, but it is scaffolding, because if your partner would love to be able to do that, and in order for you to not feel jealous, insecure, fearful, anxiety, and riddled with anxiety, you put that rule in that they can't do it. Great, you may need that in the moment. Your relationship may need that to build on those foundational attributes that may not quite be there yet. But it's still scaffolding, and scaffolding should be temporary. But what most of us do is we erect all of the scaffolding and then forget about it. I've set my rules, I know what makes me happy, I know what I'm comfortable with. You said yes to this list of rules, now we're done with this conversation forever. And it stifles growth and it shrinks your partner. Scaffolding is the things that is the hardest part of this theory. It's the thing that we cling to the tightest, because these rules mean so much to us. And if somebody doesn't want a particular rule we have, it's fights, it's arguments, it's endless conversations about this stuff. And that's important work. But just remember that scaffolding should always be temporary. But that also doesn't mean that you're ever going to get to a point where you can completely remove them all. Right? April has released me from almost all our rules. The amount of growth that we have seen through this process has been incredible, but there's still a couple of little small ones left. That's fine for me, because she has consistently come to me and said, I'm not there yet, but I promise you, I am working my hardest to get there. And that is all I can ask of her, and all any of you can ask of your partner. There's things in our life, sometimes we'll have sexual trauma, family trauma, all sorts of things that may just be ultimately impossible for them to ever move past. And they're going to need you to concede a part of yourself to protect that part of themselves. But at least if you bring it out in the open, and everybody's talking about it and understands why it's there, then it won't seem so bad. These types of rules that you impose on your partner that they wouldn't otherwise choose for themselves can serve a purpose to help build trust. But over the long term, they start to become suffocating. You start to build resentment. You can't understand why they don't trust you enough to let you do X, Y, or Z. And that can start to erode that foundation in your relationship. Wild love theory at its core is essentially the refusal to confuse the scaffolding that once kept us safe for the cathedral you were meant to build. It is not the be-all, end-all answer to a non-monogamous lifestyle. It's in the way, but it's necessary. So you should not feel guilt because you have rules. All we're asking for, all we believe in wild love theory is that at some point, and maybe that's today, you decide to face the direction of relational freedom and start trying to move that way at a pace that's safe and comfortable for you. And usually you're going to need help. Therapists are the best source of help, and maybe you listen to podcasts, maybe you read books, that sort of thing. You have to do the work, you have to communicate, but the goal is not to get to ultimate complete freedom, or you're not doing wild love theory right. The goal is to just turn in that direction and do the best to honor yourself and your partner and move towards giving them that freedom. So if you accept this theory, if you accept that your partner's happiness is important, if you accept that you should do your own internal work to get rid of your fears and insecurity instead of farming that work out to them, then a couple of questions come up. Do I want my partner to be the happiest they can be? And do I therefore owe my partner their freedom? Owe my partner their freedom. That's a heavy word. Most of us in this room, including us, would never have accepted somebody telling us you owe your partner their freedom. That feels heavy. It can feel terrifying. I can promise you that I think from listening to a million conversations that we've had with people in the lifestyle over the years, I don't know that I've ever seen anybody that was slower than us. We're fond of saying that we were in the lifestyle for 3 years before we were actually ever in the lifestyle. For 3 years, we went to events, parties, and did nothing but continually interviewing the people that were at these parties. I think April mentioned this in her keynote the other day, but we were so terrified because we thought what we had was something, well, what we have is something special. And that will bring fear to the surface in a way like nothing else. And we were terrified that something we did, if we started tiptoeing into this new world, that we would derail what we had. So it was scared us. And we did a lot of questioning, a lot of answering. After 3 years, she had a little session with a woman. And the whole thing just triggered me, and she didn't do anything wrong, but it was just a horrible experience. I wasn't ready. I thought I was, maybe, but I wasn't. And so this process is a long, difficult journey. And I don't think anybody in this room that's been in it for very long would disagree with, nobody's going to disagree that it's a difficult journey at times. Or maybe some of you have had an easy time, but fuck you. But most of us have had our struggle with this. Right? This is not supposed to be easy work. But I also bet not many of you would say that's been in this for a while that the work isn't worth it. It's changed your life. It's made you better people. It's made you communicate better. There's so many benefits to it if it's done correctly. I just left you 2 questions. Do I want my big partner to be the happiest they can be, and do I therefore owe them their freedom? And if you accept that perhaps you do owe them that work to give them more freedom to be the person they truly want to be, then you're going to have to start that work. And I'm going to say kind of a closing here, but when you hear the word, I'm going to ask you this. When you hear the words that you owe your partner their freedom, do you feel inspired? Or do you feel terrified? But if you feel both, then you're standing exactly where you need to be to start your growth. Because most of you are going to feel both. The ones of you that feel nothing but complete excitement and inspiration, also fuck you, but most of you, that sounds terrifying, right? That fear, that terrifying, if right now you're thinking, oh my God, there's no way I'll ever do that. Because if I did, my partner would start immediately doing this, this, and this. That's exactly what our workshop is about today. We're going to highlight all of that if you'll hang around for it. This last part, I'm going to close with this so that we can get to the workshop, because the workshop's the most important part today. And I'm basically going to read this, right? Every great love is built where that inspiration and fear are kind of holding hands. You're going to feel both. Your relationship doesn't need to be finished. It needs to be honest about what it's building toward. Okay? It's not finished. April now is not finished. We still have difficulties. We've had a 2-hour conversation this week. It was beautiful, but it wasn't easy. You know, sometimes you think these presenters that have been in this a long time, or those of us that have been in it a while, just have learned to just go through it easily. That is, I don't know that will ever be the case. But I don't know that any part of life is that way. All right? So go slowly. We're not asking anybody to leave here. In fact, we're telling you not to do this. Do not leave here today and go, that Scott guy's a genius. You have no rules anymore. Because both of those statements are stupid. What you're building is not just a relationship. You're building a grand relational cathedral that can only exist if both people are free to walk inside of it as their whole, complete, unedited self. It's a difficult journey, but it's a beautiful building that you can build. 3 weeks ago, I kissed my wife goodbye as she left to go out on dates with another man. She had a slightly similar experience before, but that time I put a list of rules on her that probably could have felt suffocated during the day. Don't go back to his room, don't stay overnight. It was a whole bunch of stuff. This time she left. And by the way, if you've never experienced the sound, the mundane sounds of your wife blow drying her hair, putting on her makeup, and getting ready to go out on a date that's not with you, we are not trained as men to handle that situation. It's a very different situation. She's getting ready and she's putting her jeans on. You think my butt looks good at this? She's asked that question to me 1,000 times, but that was the first time that she asked it. I knew it didn't have anything to do with me. She had no rules on this date, no instructions, except to go live your life in whatever way, and be present and live it in whatever way you want to. She even asked me before that date, I think she talked about this in her keynote, if dinner's at 6, when that's over, if we decide to go somewhere else, do you want me to message you? That was a tough question, because my instinct was to say, oh, yes, I need to know where you're at. It's safety, it's all this stuff. I was wrapping the reason in good language, but really, I just wanted to continue to feel like I had some measure of control that had the illusion that somehow I was involved in this. When in reality, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want this to be about us. I wanted it to be about her. Fuck, that's hard. As she drove down the driveway, it was tough to watch her back out of the driveway, knowing that she's going to see another man, and I don't know what's going to happen. But I realized in that moment as I waved goodbye that the future of love doesn't belong to the most careful. It belongs to the most courageous.
Yeah.